Hey, what's up, everybody? Apparently, by the way, in college these days is highly frowned upon by the establishment. The person sitting next to me virtually on He Said, She Said. I'm Dennis Shelby. This is Deanna Hins, and we are going to get into college drama on He Said, She Said. People buying their way into college. That's just cockamamie cuckadoodoo. I have no other words to say. I'm not an explanation. But anyway, so what we're going to do, for those of you that do not know, obviously a big celebrity scandal over the past 48 months where of a consultant to help them steer their kid and their way into higher or I'm sorry, into colleges and universities of prestige. We're not talking about trying to get your kid, not taking away from the state universities out there, the Youngstown states, but we're talking big institutions, Harvard, like Stanford, like USC, where it's highly selective, highly competitive process. And all sorts of shenanigans that are going on. There's a recent Netflix documentary right now starring Matthew Modine. It's like a mockumentary where it's acting mixed with like live interviews. And it just really goes deep into how this all came to fruition. The guy that was behind it basically ran a college. There's consultants out there now that will consult you and your kid on their way into getting into a top university. People actually hire a consultant.
What do you think about that? Let's stop there real quick. So what do you think about that, hiring consultants to get your kid into college?
So first of all, I think that it's really a weird thing. So these are people that already have significant means to spend the coin to get their kid into a top college. Now, talking middle class, lower middle class, we're not talking people of no means, and what it means for them to be able to get into a top university of prestige with the network. I think you learn nothing. I think you learn absolutely zero when it comes to, the business school. Unless you're going to be a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon, that network I feel is like what you're buying into Harvard, into Stanford, into USC. But the fact of the matter is this, is that most of these people are already coming from places of prestige. They're coming from places of money. They're coming from places of means, and they have this network. So I don't quite understand why they feel the need to, be at the next cocktail party to say, like, I got my kid into USC. So I feel like hiring a college consultant is like, I mean, like, I'm like, man, you can get paid to do that. Like, and do you feel good
I think
about
it's a cool
yourself?
gig, actually. I wish I had a college consultant early on too. And I mean, I
Really?
don't know what it was like for you when you went to college. I think things now are much different, but like my parents really didn't talk to me about going to college, getting into college. What did I need to do? I don't know if we ever had that discussion about college. I had always assumed I was going to go, and I did. But I think it's a lot different now where we are talking more to our kids about what to do, what's expected, how to get in, why grades are important. I mean, so I think things are different. I wish if I could go back that I did have somebody that I could consult with on really preparing for some of those tests. I mean, I just walked in and took the test, right? Like there was no prep work. And they probably did have a prep back then for like the SAT and all that. But I mean, I think things are just more competitive, a little bit different. And don't we want the best for our kids?
Completely and utterly overrated.
What's overrated?
College in general is highly overrated. So that's the first thing. I like the fact of the matter is that I teach in college. I'm a part-time professor.
Yeah.
Colleges is significantly overrated.
Why do you
Um,
think that?
I go to class, I talk to kids that are, they want to be in communications, they want to be in social media, and they're going to school for 4 years to learn how to do social media, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, how do you manage anybody's social media account? No, I don't even know where to begin. You didn't have to come to college to learn where to begin to do that, right? It's like you can go out and volunteer. You can go out and find a small
Volunteer? Volunteer?
volunteer, right?
Oh,
You
come
can
on now. That
you
right
could
there. They're not
you
gonna do anything without getting paid.
you could run your fraternity, sorority social media pages. So like the School of Entrepreneurialism. I'm like, okay, so you walk in to give a talk and you're in the School of Entrepreneurialism. How many of you have started a business while you're in college? And all you see 20 kids in a room, School of Entrepreneurialism, and they sit there and no hands go up. How can you
That's
be
interesting. So
how
why
can
are
you
they in that?
my point, you don't need to go to college to learn how to start a business.
Well, no, you don't. I do believe there are some skills that are really important in learning, right? Just to avoid some bumps in the road that you or I may have experienced. But I think to be an entrepreneur, I really think that it's something internal. It's a drive. And that really shocks me that people are signing up to be entrepreneurs and taking college classes, yet they don't have that spirit where, I mean, you and I both are very similar, right? My mom just gave me a note card of everything I did as a kid, every business I started from like the age of 7. And she wrote it down and just gave it to me. And I'm looking at this and some things I forgot about, but it was definitely funny, right? So, and you did it. You talk about cutting the grass. I mean, we did things
So so
way long before we decided we
this,
put a label on it and we're gonna, be entrepreneurs.
this is why and so that's why I look at this like steering you through college. No, I didn't really have much, if any, direction at all. But my path was a little bit different. I was getting recruited to play college basketball, and like so, phone calls started to come in,
Mm,
and we would like you to come to our college, um, academically, C student, 16 on the ACT 3 times. I was not going to an ACT prep class. I was not
yeah,
going to go to like that was just a waste of time.
yeah,
Um, Academically, in order to qualify for that money, I mean, you got to be like Mensa smart, like 34 ACT, 3.85 grade. That's the type of grades that you need to get in order to get academic money. And like that seems so far out of the realm. So it's like I don't think and so having gone through it, kind of since I'm experiencing now with young athletes is that they're in this process that I was in at 16, 17. I was so ill prepared to make those decisions. But we worked through it. Like it was like, here's the pros and cons of this college, this college, this college. None of it was, by the way, was chosen academically. Every decision that I made was about the athletics. Was
yeah. And I think that's a lot of the cases too. I think colleges, when it does come to scholarships and money, it is more academic, or I'm sorry, athletics and academics.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was absolutely the pathway. Now, good thing that I had athletics to get me on the academics path, right? And going forward. But so here's the rub. So this documentary, it's called Varsity Blues.
Okay.
It's on Netflix. And let me get to Chris Smith's documentary, starring Matthew Modine and college admissions consultant Rick Singer is the real life guy who basically was under a boatload of trouble for cheating and bribery. Um, a lot of stars, a lot of people ended up in a lot of trouble. You see the lady from Full House. She was married to the
Aunt
owner.
Becky.
Aunt Becky got in a significant amount of trouble. Felicity Huffman. These are people that paid fines. They ended up doing some soft time. In and so what they did is they went to Rick Singer and he basically guaranteed them an opportunity in the side door is what they basically called it, right? So you have the front door, and you could go give a boatload of money to a university. It doesn't guarantee you that your kid's going to get into Notre Dame, into USC, into Harvard. And we're talking 20, 30, $50 million doesn't necessarily get you the right at this point with that donation. And Rick Singer's rub was, look, for $500,000, I guarantee you I will get your kid into USC. And the parents don't ask a lot of questions. He doesn't give a lot of details. He finds obscure sports like rowing or she's a ham.
I love it. Have her come on.
She's a ham and a handful. So they go on the side door. They pay Rick Singer $500,000 to get their kid in the USC. They go talk to the rowing coach. They go talk to, I don't even say soccer because soccer is a primary sport, but like just secondary sports that are off the grid, and coaches need money for programs. Athletic directors put pressure onto coaches to fundraise. So now somebody suddenly says, we're going to give you a $250,000 donation for the sailing program at Stanford. And the AD's like, hey, we care about football and basketball. Go get us some more money. Women's sports that don't matter as much, right? And they're like, oh, we got you $250,000. And so they're letting people in what's known as the side door.
Right.
How is that any different than somebody that writes a big check, right? Edward DeBartolo Jr. has names on buildings at Notre Dame. Covelli's have names on buildings at Ohio State University, which is no longer an easy university to get into. In-state kids have a problem because they charge much less than out-of-state people. I fail to see the problem with Rick Singer figuring out ways to take people's money and get them into college.
Well, I think what I believe it's that you're either trying to bribe or you're really donating, like to donate. Not everybody who donates wants something in return. There really isn't. I mean, maybe like tax write-offs, but I know people who have donated whose kids who did not go to that school or they don't have children, right? So they really do care about higher education. There's no rub in it, right? They want to actually donate because they care. Maybe they're an alumni or maybe they want to help a particular program. But the difference is they're doing it for that reason without this promise of my kid will get in, my unqualified kid, and possibly unqualified, right? We don't know.
This is unfair of me to do this, but let's just say that Deanna's sitting on a pile of money and you got 50 mil to donate to the college of your choice. Now your niece is about to have your great niece or nephew.
She had my great nephew. Yeah.
Great nephew. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And great auntie Deanna.
Just Aunt D. That's what they call me, Aunt D.
Pulled up a Brinks truck worth of money to Notre Dame. And you got your name on a building.
Yeah.
One of the most prestigious
It wouldn't be Notre Dame, but okay.
We'll pretend. And your now little nephew is now 17 years old. And he goes to get into Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And in 18 years from now, you're walking around Florida, retired. You won't be cranky like I will be when I'm old. I'm gonna take full advantage of being in a bad mood all the time. But you're gonna be walking around Florida, and your nephew's gonna call you and say, Auntie, I tried to get into Notre Dame, and they won't let me in. I can't get in. And you're like, I gave $50 million to that university.
So you clearly don't know me well enough because that's not me. Like you've got to earn it. Now, does that not mean that, I'm just talking about like with my kids, right? I think about things with my kids and there have been things that have come up where I might know somebody, right? Let's just say a little bit different scenario, but something that is easy to relate to, right? We know every other person. When my kids were looking for a job, their first job, could I make a phone call and get them a job somewhere making, for their age, a decent amount of money? Yeah,
Sure.
I probably could, right? I probably could. Did I do that? No. Did they want me to do it? Yeah, right? It's less work for them. But they had to figure that out. They had to go through that process. They had to find something else. Now, would I call a friend and just say, "Are you hiring?" Maybe, yeah. I might call that university and say, "Hey, what could they do to get in?" But I don't believe handing things out for free is, I think that's what's created so many problems with this generation, is that sense of entitlement. And everybody gets a trophy. And that's not my gig. I don't do that.
I don't have a problem with what you're saying, but I have a problem with the fact that I find it incredibly challenging to believe that
you don't have to.
and let's just say they're qualified, right? Like, let's just say that, like, it's a 3.8, a 30 on the ACT, and they're just like, "We're sorry, but you're out of room." And you're like, and I'm sitting there going, I gave $50 million to this university, and that's it. We're done.
Yeah. So then if that were the case and they are qualified to get in, and I've donated, whether I donated or not, right? But if they're qualified to get in and they're not getting in, I'd want to know why. But I would put that on them to find out why. But if I'm already a donor and I have that relationship with those decision makers, right, I would absolutely dig and find out what the issue is and why. Now I have the choice to no longer fund that university because of that, if I want to, and fund a different one or put that money elsewhere. But it's still, the initial point is, when you're donating, you either donate to an organization out of the goodness of your heart or because you want to improve it, or you're trying to pay somebody off. And when that money was first donated, it's not a payoff, or it shouldn't be.
It'd be like having enough money to put your name on a hospital, and then you need medical care, and they're like, "Sorry, we can't treat you here." You'd be pissed. Anybody would be mad.
Yeah, but it's, what's the intention? That's the difference between what Aunt Becky did and donating to a university. And unfortunately, because of this, right, I believe, there is definitely a gray line. I'm not going to say that there's not a gray line there. There is a gray line, right? But the university, if you're donating, does not owe you anything. You are making that donation. You're making that donation because you want to donate, right?
But
you can have your feelings and your opinions all you want.
But that comes with a special privilege, though. So, like,
but it doesn't. It doesn't. It does when you're doing something like Aunt Becky does.
It absolutely
right?
does. So, like, let's pretend this is real, right? So if you give Sam Covelli gave a boatload of money to put his name on an athletic building down at Ohio State. He also gives money to put his name on the scoreboard at Ohio State. You don't think that he gets special preference when it comes to seats in that stadium on Saturdays?
He probably does, but we're talking seats. Who cares? That's a seat, okay?
Those are what's the difference between a seat in a classroom and a seat in a football game?
Because anybody can buy a ticket for a seat in a football game. And a seat in a classroom is an education. There's more than that. Not everybody can get that seat in a classroom.
And so now you take it to one step further, that you think that there's kids that are on that football field or in that basketball team that are as qualified as other students at the school to be getting that education?
Oh, absolutely not. No, but here's the thing again, and we had this conversation last week, right? A little bit different. We weren't talking about colleges, but the scholarships are given to typically athletes, and it depends what that is, right? Football is a big area that they get scholarships, and there's a ton of variables that go into who gets how much of that scholarship money, but they do because it's a business, and increasing that business brings in more students, makes that college more desirable. Right. So it's a business of why they get those scholarships. But yeah, is there somebody who is probably, you know, a lot smarter that did not get a certain scholarship because an athlete did? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when I was doing research with Ohio State University, there was a professor that was a biomechanical engineer that his department, he had the Honda Endowed Chair at the university.
Mm-hmm.
Honda, the big motor company, Honda.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I've heard of him.
So Honda's essentially becomes a client, right? Drop
Okay.
everything. Honda's giving a lot of money. They got to go to a basketball game. They want to go to the football game. They get special treatment at the university that doesn't just end when we start talking about going to sporting events.
Okay.
Because of that money that comes along with criteria and stipulation.
Gotcha. I don't doubt that. They absolutely do. Big donors always get extra treatment because you want to treat your donors with a white glove so that they continue donating.
Like putting their kid into a college.
But that shouldn't and that may be the case. I'm not saying that may not ever happen. It may happen. What I'm saying is that you're asking what's the difference between what Aunt Becky did and a big donor who puts their name on a building in a university. And what I'm saying is the difference is one is legal. Donations are legal, right? Whatever happens after that, you know, but the strings that are attached should not be there in a true donation. And that's legal. What Aunt Becky did is illegal. I mean, that right there is pretty black and white.
But the farce is that we're dressing it up. We're basically we're like, okay, so side door or front door is way too expensive. Front door is like right, it's a lot of money and it's not a guarantee.
Right.
The side door, in my opinion, is no different in the sense that you're still paying for access. In either case, right? So like you could say what you want to, but I mean, there's a reason that philanthropy exists. People put their name on a building, and it happens for a reason. And there are strings that are attached to it. And one of those strings could be is not just regulated to my name, my prestige, my ticketing. It also comes with that ticket to college. But we're lying to ourselves if we don't admit that.
No, I'm not going to admit that because I don't agree with that. It may, okay? I mean, if donating money, if I donated a ton of money to YSU, right? That's where I graduated from. That's where I'm from. If I gave them a ton of money and all of a sudden, you know, my kids are going to YSU, which is the case, and they are not qualified, right? Their grades are poor or whatever. They don't meet the standard to get into Youngstown State. That's on them. That's on my, right? But if my kids are going, is it because I donated? Maybe, maybe not. I don't really know, but there's not that string that's secretly attached. What they were doing in this case with Aunt Becky is they were not just giving the money. I mean, they were lying about the abilities of these kids. They were photoshopping different scenarios. It was total bogus.
So they were photoshopping pictures of like a kid that didn't play water polo. They photoshopped his head on a water polo player.
Right.
However,
go ahead.
Doesn't everybody embellish just a slight amount on a college entrance to make themselves look more marketable and attractive?
I'm sure that happens. Yeah, I didn't, but
no, I'm saying like so.
But does that happen? Yeah.
if you even with a resume, semantically, don't we, I mean, you and I haven't had to for a long time, but like, you know, so do you put the marketing spin on a resume? Absolutely. You're not, you're embellishing, like, if you like volunteered at the breast walk for cancer and 20,000 people showed up, you like are like, hey, I helped with and you spin that in a certain way. So like,
So there's a difference in spinning and flat out lying.
well, where does it end?
When it becomes a lie, that's when it ends. I mean, you can take what you did and word it in a sense that it has a marketing spin on it, right? To make yourself more marketable or to make a product more marketable. But when you're spinning that so much that it's not the truth, it's no longer the truth, then that's when it ends. That's when it's wrong. And that's what was happening. Their qualification. Well, actually, and I did not watch the whole Netflix show. I watched part of it and then I stopped watching it. And I do want to, so I didn't watch it. So, but from what I heard, is that she could have got into the school on her own anyhow without them going through all that.
Yeah, like the one individual was definitely qualified. She would have got in on her own merit. And that was, again, this was an individual. She started like some pots and pans company or something. Like she's worth like a lot of money. Like crazy paper. Do you feel, in that documentary, and I think that maybe you probably watched it if it was in the first 15 minutes, they're showing kids on getting their acceptance notification from colleges.
I don't remember that, but I was multitasking when it was on, so it wasn't like I was sitting. But
it's the equivalent of the gender reveal party. Like they have people around them, they have video cameras on them. There's a lot of like, I'm getting my acceptance today, and they've got the laptop. And
oh my gosh!
And they're like opening it, and they're showing this raw emotion and reaction, and like. I feel so many different things about it because, like, first of all, the kids are like, some of them are finding rejection for the first time in their life, and they've not had to deal with. And it's like, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, like, I hope like somebody is, keeping a watch on these poor kids because it like literally has some underlying tones of like, if this doesn't go the right way, what are they capable of? And so that's the first
terrible,
thing. Yeah. And then I'm like, is this the only pathway into Stanford? And then it's like all the pressure of opening this thing with like, and then people are getting in, they're having this social media moment. They're, like, I can't even fathom that whole ordeal.
No, nor can I. I think it's overkill, right? But we probably will see more of stuff like that because everybody wants to have like social media ready, big deal, type of announcements. So nothing is really private or authentic or, personal. I think something should just be kept within a small circle. So
why do you think that the universities are completely, what's the word I'm looking for? And it's again, in the documentary. So everybody that hired Rick Singer, including Rick Singer, got in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Universities themselves, though, have been exonerated from any wrongdoing at all. No fines, no punishments, no implication, no nothing.
Well, weren't they the ones that set everybody else up? Isn't that why?
They're so at USC.
They're the narcs.
They're complicit. They're complicit on helping create the system, to manage the system, to take the money and create the marketplace for this to exist. And then they sit there and they wash their hands and they say, "We're going to take your $50 million, right? And we know this goes on. Like I know you don't. We know it goes on.
It does go on. Absolutely, it goes on.
It goes on, right? And so the universities, the way it was portrayed in the movie is that there's an admissions council of made up of like 5 or 6 people that were reviewing athletes to come into USC. And so that committee, there's an individual on that committee that would, Rick Singer had relationships. That's what he did all over the place with, this admissions team, that admissions team, and they're taking the money. There's pressure on them to make money for the athletic department. When we said it last week, there's just an article the other day that the women's NCAA basketball tournament lost $2.5 million as opposed to the men's making like $1 billion. And it's like, so now you're a women's basketball coach. Now you're getting, oh, look, AD, we got another $250,000, donation. And I got to put somebody at the end of the bench that's never, that would be my 15th player.
Right.
I don't know how the universities have gotten to the point where they're completely innocent in everything that goes on.
Well, I don't either. I mean, I can't argue with that with you. I don't know how they are not held accountable either. I have no idea. They should be. They should be held accountable for that. Because it is wrong and that shouldn't be allowed to happen, but it does. And everybody says, and if I recall, in this particular case with Aunt Becky, the reason that that Rick guy went to those sports, right, that really weren't noticed as much, that were kind of, the wealthy sports, right, the sports that were like considered wealthier sports, but that were kind of under the radar, is that the athletic department and the admissions department did not talk. There wasn't as much communication between the two. So it was easier to run through that and to not get noticed that that's what actually was happening. And wasn't it that how did she end up getting caught? Wasn't it that the counselor called the admissions department and said that she was not in the particular sport that she was claiming to be part of and had never played sports? And that's how she was getting in. So, I mean, again,
there was a counselor that he kept digging further and further and deeper into why are we letting this unqualified person into the university. And I don't know if it was Stanford.
I don't know.
But anyway, that's what happened. You got one admissions counselor that was like, hey, there's something not right here. And so that then started to tip off and prompt the investigation. Oh, and allegations. They tapped Rick Singer's phone. So the FBI had countless thousands of hours of conversations with the individuals and the university officials. And I don't know what brought up the affidavit as to why that they started to cue in on his phone and him. I think it was like almost by accident. It was one of those deals where it was like by accident, and he just was on the phone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that it's like the housing crisis back in the mid 2000s. Everybody wanted the silver bullet, and like whose fault is it, right? And everybody had their hand in the pot. The banks were giving money. They created loans packages. Mm-hmm. The banks sold them. The people took everybody was responsible. I find it completely egregious that the only people that got into the trouble in this situation were individuals that were basically, buying their kids' way into a prestigious university. Shame on them. Shame on the university. Shame on the university for taking the big donations of everybody knowing what the underbelly of that looks like. I just think that it's a big, horrible machine that is one of the biggest lies that we've been told is that college is the only pathway.
I would agree.
We've duped into believing that our kids are going to have a better way of life. They're going to have, you know, a better job, and that was like that was our parents' mentality, right? They're like, we want to give our kids something
Absolutely.
better, so college must be the way.
Right. Because a lot of our parents, I don't know what the stats are, but I would think a lot of our parents didn't go to college. I mean, my parents both had their own businesses and had
Right.
a trade. So I don't know if that was just in my particular world, but I think the next generation, we did go to college, right? Because that's what was expected from us because our parents wanted a better life for us, just like we want for our kids. But I think now, as we see, and I think COVID has actually changed the thought process a lot. And I believe college is still important in the sense that I will always say education is important, right? And I know that there's a sense of accomplishment for myself personally that I did get a degree, that I accomplished that. I've got my degree. However, I'm still using it. I may not be using it in the way I thought I was going to be using it, but I am using that degree and I'm using that education. But I also see that with COVID, right, with people who the way some of the industries absolutely stopped, that entrepreneurship is growing now. People are recognizing that the trades are really important. So it just may be this cycle that may just always continue between which is more important. And I don't think one is more important than the other. I think it depends on the student because we are all given, and you're probably going to roll your eyes, but I would really believe like all of us have a gift and those gifts look different and we need to share those gifts. And some gifts may be in an area where a college degree is absolutely required, such as a doctor or an attorney or, and I can't think right now, but they want to really, make those qualities, fine tune them, right? And then others may have a gift where they're better mechanically, where it's just hands on and learning that way.
I don't mean to, and so I have to be careful when I go on the college tangent because I've got 2 college degrees. I teach in college part time. Um, it was a big deal for me and my sister to be able to go to college. And I know, and I mean no disrespect to anybody out there that goes to college that has a degree, that it's a sense of accomplishment. Nobody can take away your education. I don't know where my degrees are, but um like nobody could take that education away from you. Um
Mm-hmm.
so it is obviously an accomplishment. Um but again, my whole beef with it is that and I had a kid in the college mindset is so misaligned with the reality of the real world. And what I mean by that is like I had a kid in a class that was an assistant manager at a supermarket working his way through college. And his college advisor suggested that he quit his job to go get an internship. And he asked my advice on it. I was like, well, as the assistant manager, what do you do? And he's like, well, at night, I'm in charge of the store. I'm like, well, how many people are there working at night? And he's like, I don't know, 10 to 20 sometimes. And he's like, every customer issue that comes up, I have to deal with it. 21-year-old college student.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he did. I said, listen, if you quit your job for an internship and you come interview with me and you told me that you quit that job to go take an internship, I won't hire you. He's like, why? I was like, because you make bad decisions. That's why. But this is what college like if so college kids, they don't want a part-time job with me. They want an internship. I'm like,
Yeah.
why don't you just take a part-time job? Like and this is how we're preparing kids. Now, Youngstown State's a very inexpensive college. This is how we're preparing kids that for at universities that cost 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a year to go to. And so, look, did Joe go to college?
Who? My
Joe.
brother?
Yeah.
No.
Shout out to,
No, he ironically he barely got through high school. And I
shout out
only share that because of how successful he is now.
how
But
successful
school is not his forte.
Joe. Facilla Flooring just did work with my nephew's doing a house. They great things to say about him. His business, his company, right? He's got a good life. You know,
Yeah.
he's done well for himself. And
Very blessed. Yes.
I am bringing Michael out to MCCTC for a visit in next month, literally in April. We met the principal through athletics. He has a son the same age, and we're starting that process now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that I don't want my kids to go to college, but
Yeah.
but the thing is that you can come out of high school with an electrician, a skilled trade. There's nothing wrong with working and paying for that college, making 40, 50, $60,000 a year right out of college, or out of MCCTC, and paying your own way through college, right?
Yeah.
Like they've got aviation mechanics that if you're staying in the area out of high school at 18 years old, making 60 grand a year.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to move to Charlotte or Miami, he's got 18-year-old kids making $80,000 right out of high school.
Right.
But
right. I know that's a hot field.
But what we do is we market the shit out of our universities, and the most underutilized resource in Mahoning County is our trade school.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Like I said, every kid is different. So yeah, and I've got two boys, so I get what you're saying. Both of my boys started at YSU. One was in forensic science, the other's in sports medicine, right? Junior year, my oldest son who was in forensic science, he's just like, this isn't my gig. And to be really honest with you, he is so cookie cutter me that he is so me. When he started, of course I'm going to support him in anything that they do, right? But even going in, I'm like thinking this is not the field for him because I know his personality so well, and I see him doing something where he has a little bit more control, having his own business, right? He's got a great personality. People really like him. He's very welcoming and warm and stuff. So I can just see him doing something different than forensic science. But so when he came to me, and he was nervous because I do think education is important, but he took that as like, you know, Mom, this isn't not my gig. Like I'm not feeling it. I'm like, okay, you know, don't, just because it's getting hard, don't make that decision. But if you really are not liking that, so we kind of made an agreement. He would take one semester off and he'd work for his dad's company doing tile work, right? Which our whole family is like, the tile, you need a tile guy. I got a tile guy. From cousins to nephews to father to brothers to son, right? And he did that. And he took that semester off and started learning that trade, and he loves it. And I'm totally cool with it, right? Because that's what he wants to do. You know, now will he always do that? I don't know. I don't see that. I see him still doing something different with his personality more than the physical, but he might. And if he does, that's okay. That's his decision. So, you know, everybody is different. Every child's different.
And again, it's not, and I'm not, so look, I run a business that provides ongoing professional development. I'm a big proponent of education. I'm just not of this mindset of the traditional walk through the Ivy League, you know, Ivy covered building. I love the nostalgia of it. You know, like I love, like college was, you know, I played basketball, so that was a lot of work, studied a little bit, and then drank beer. And like those priorities weren't always aligned the way that they should have been. Now,
I had a blast in college. I loved going to YSU.
Now, here's an interesting question for you. I think it's interesting. You got two candidates to hire. All right?
Yeah.
One of them, they went to college. They lived poor. They lived on their own for their first time. They studied different subject matter, you know, through their coursework. Maybe they get a business degree or a marketing degree, and they come and tell you, And you're like, so what experience do you have? And it's like, well, I went to college and I learned this and that and marketing classes, and I'm still, I'd work maybe part time to get by, yada yada yada. Okay, thanks for coming to the interview. I appreciate it. The next person comes in and you say, tell me about yourself. And they're like, well, for the last 4 years, I've lived very poor, but I lived 6 months in Italy. I submersed myself in the culture. I learned the language. I worked as a waiter. I on the weekends I'd go to different art museums and I traveled all around Italy. And then after that 6 months was up, I went to England, lived there for 6 months, and was really poor, but I worked really hard. I learned the culture of England. Then I went to Ireland for 6 months. Then I went to Japan for 6 months. And then at the end of 4 years, and leaving Spain, and they're like, so I lived on my own. I figured out how to make it work. I submersed myself in all these foreign different cultures, and but I realized after 4 years, I got to get a job. It's time for me to really start to focus, and that's my experience. Who do you hire?
So that's a great question and in my head, I know people that fit both categories that you just described. And I'm trying to be objective and not put those personalities and those people in this scenario, but it's a little bit challenging. If that was all I was going off of, I would probably hire the one that traveled and was worldly and had to figure out how to do it on their own. Because, right, they know what it is to work. Now, if they were doing that, there's more questions, right? If they were doing that and mom and dad were funding that trip, I would look at it differently. If the first student was working and had to pay for their college education and they were working, then I might go with that one. So there's a lot of other questions I would ask, like, why do they want to do that? But if we're just looking at those surface ones, probably the one that has traveled and lived on their own and is independent. But not always. Not always.
But we don't encourage that as a society.
I think we're starting to encourage that more and more. I really do. I mean, we can't right now because of COVID, because nobody can really do much.
I think the secret's out. I think the secret's out on the university as the only way. Like, I think people are finally starting to be like, oh, wait a minute. That's right. Like, what do I actually use that now?
So, see, I kind of disagree with you. And again, maybe this is because we have different experiences. My parents, neither one of them have a college degree. They both had their own businesses. College was never pressed on us. I made that decision, probably being influenced from my friends without realizing I was being influenced from my friends, that I wanted to go to college, right? My brother did not, but my parents never pushed us one way or another. So I never felt this pressure, this college pressure, that this was the one way and only way, the way you're describing it. And so I don't know. I mean, I've experienced something totally different, because it's not, it never has been, it never will be. It's a great way, but it's not the only way.
I've found out something about myself as I matured into my late 40s now.
Late 40s. As I turn, I'm 50.
as I mature, that I went to a liberal arts college. End up with a philosophy minor just because of the coursework that I had to take. And I mean, I had to take art history. I had to take a lot of subjects that you don't have at Youngstown State. Like, you weren't required, but in a liberal arts college, like, I had to take like 4 or 5 philosophy classes. I had to go deeper into psychology classes. I had to go into Western Civ and history. All this course. One of the things that I understand about myself now, that why that was a good fit then, which I didn't understand, is that that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I enjoy, like, when my networking events, for example, they're never the same. There's breakfast, lunch, happy hour. I like a lot of different genres of music. I like a lot of different genres of art. I like a lot of different genres of movies. Um, Doing one thing pragmatically, like outside of getting up and working hard every day, doing one thing pragmatically, like makes me absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Same.
Right?
Same.
You know, like that variety, that variety is something that I think I don't know if I don't think that the liberal arts college instilled that in me as much as it's kind of the other way. It was in me and it helped bring that out,
Yeah.
you know, as you know, like so that was the good fit. Um but yeah, I just you know, somebody wrote, and I don't know that you can see this in your comments. I got a private chat. Did you
Yeah,
private
no, go
chat?
ahead. I know I've had some too I responded to, but it's not coming up in the comments
We can
on
wrap it
our
up. Um,
what did they say?
oh, gap years are amazing for some. One of my kids did it, and the best thing he did. I appreciate these comments, by the way. So
Yeah, I do too.
I don't want to throw shade on the gap year, but my dad's gap year was like basically Sebastian Maniscalco. If you've ever seen his comedy bit, and he talks about when my wife got done with college, they went and skipped around Europe and right. My dad's like, you just graduated. You gotta go to work. Right? There's no gap year, even or gap year between high school and college, right? There's
Yeah.
no. It's like, look, okay, you're not in college, then Falcon Foundry's hiring. There's your gap year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My parents let me party for about a month graduating from high school, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. I took a year off from high school before I went to college.
Look at
I wasn't sure what
you,
I wanted. I was
so progressive, woman ahead of her time.
well, I didn't know, and I was in retail management. I was at work in that mall from high school through college, and I was managing. So I was like, I didn't really know where I wanted to go, which path. So I took that year off to figure it out, and then I started.
Did everybody hang out? Did, like all the mall employees hang out?
Oh, well, everybody you worked with. You know what's funny though is I could still run into somebody who worked at the mall at Southern Park Mall, like during those years, like the mid 80s to the mid 90s. And there's a bond there. And I mean, you will just start talking about like merry-go-round, like all these different stores, the Wild Pear. You'll start just talking about all these stores that are like no long gone. So yeah, there's a bond. There's a bond between all of us mall rats.
We are mall rats. We are the mall rat. When they say Generation X, no, they should call us the mall rat generation because we could do a whole episode on. It won't be a disagreement. It would just be a conversation. But like literally on Saturdays, we get dropped off at the Southern Park Mall. My mom would be like, "Don't get kidnapped in the arcade now." I was like, "Why are they kidnapping kids in the arcade?" I'd be on the lookout. Somebody's gonna get me.
Yeah, she dropped you off anyhow.
Stay with your friends. We just do laps.
Yeah.
At the mall. There's a huge difference between being educated and knowledgeable.
Oh, that's good. I wish that could show up, that comment. There absolutely is. There absolutely is a huge difference with that. That's good. That's a quote. Whoever said that, like
Wendy, I don't know what that means though.
So how I'm interpreting it, right? You can have an education and you can go and continue to get education, but is that knowledge there to really use it? Or do you really have that understanding and that capability of what you were taught? So I can go on. I mean, you know, and that's what I think. And I don't know if I'm wrong. And if that person's still on, definitely share. I would love to hear how they meant it. But that's how I interpret it. Is do you know how to implement? Do you really get it? And sometimes it's like street smarts, right? I mean, do you know how to use it? That's so important. Or common sense.
So two things that our society lacks significantly: common sense and practicality.
Yeah. True.
All right. Hey, listen, it's Easter week.
Yes.
Have a good Easter.
Thank you. You too. Everybody.
enjoying these he said, she says. We'll be back. We're back. My kids are actually on spring break this week, so it'll actually be quieter next week. And we're going to find
Perfect.
another topic. If you got something that you want us to discuss, like why cheating your way into college is a great idea.
No, yeah,
Let us know.
Let us know because we will definitely talk about it. And yeah, definitely. So yeah, and happy Easter to everybody who is watching and who celebrates, and to you, Dennis, as well, and your family. So we'll catch everybody next Wednesday at 12 o'clock.
We'll see y'all. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.